Player 4 Podcast's first t-shirt is now on sale at tpublic.com. Ever wonder what it takes to make a good podcast? We've already done the math for you and put it on a t-shirt. Visit our storefront at tpublic.com/user/P4Podcast and get yours today. That's tpublic.com/user/P4Podcast.
This is the Player 4 Podcast. Join us each week as we talk about video games, entertainment, and pop culture, and bring in guests from the Rooster Teeth community. Player 4 has entered the game.
It's the Player 4 Podcast, and we're back from RTX, right, guys? Hi.
No, I'm still there.
Hi. I'm back from RTX.
Hello, I am Tristan, aka Shag Brazier from the Rooster Teeth website.
That was such a change, the way that you said originally, and then you went straight into the intro.
It sounds like I made a cut, but I didn't. It was like, hey, it's me, Tristan. Hello.
Yeah, look, it sounded like he said something, and then you just cut from another podcast to what he said.
We're just going to make fun of you.
All right. I am Alex, a.k.a. Chaos Black 21.
I'm Malachi.
And I'm the special guest, Rick Guerrero. I'm just kidding. Sorry, Malachi.
I am Malachi, a.k.a. Suki Kiba.
That was for Rick, because I know he's listening. And I am Joseph, a.k.a. Joseph J. Dunlap. Makes great underwear.
Are we just, like, quoting everybody else today?
You know, I had a lot of fun embarrassing pretty much everybody on Saturday.
You didn't fully introduce yourself. I'm just going to put that out there.
I said I'm Joseph Dunlap, a.k.a. J. Dunlap, right?
I'm Joseph Dunlap, a.k.a. J. Dunlap.
What's wrong with that? Did I say it wrong?
We never say our last names.
Oh, I don't care. I introduced myself with my last name at the panel.
I'm not saying there's a problem with it. I'm just saying that we never say our last names, so it's just odd. Like you, Joseph.
Alright, so you guys went to RTX.
You're so sweet, Alex. Well, actually, interestingly enough, Alex, this is the only podcast where I don't say my last name.
What? Well, okay, I guess. Well, hold on.
Okay.
Just because your last name is in your username does not make it your last name.
What? Just because my last name, in your own words, is in my username doesn't make it my last name?
Yeah, your username, even though it has your last name in it, I don't count it as your last name, though.
Doesn't count as you saying it as your last name.
Yeah.
He's mad because you usually introduce yourself as Joseph, a.k.a. J. Dunlap. He doesn't like that you introduce yourself as Joseph Dunlap.
I'm sorry. Joseph, a.k.a. J. Dunlap.
Why are we still talking about
I don't know.
Happy that I helped us embrace the tangent already.
Embrace it, love it, caress it.
Not even 3 minutes. It's like the first 2 minutes.
So I was talking about the fact that I got to embarrass pretty much everyone that is a regular on our podcast. So I embarrassed Alex with the theme song. I embarrassed Tristan with his little solo. I made like 5 Alexes. And then I embarrassed Stuart and Rick and Andres and Shoban. It was a good day. We also called out Bree because of her Minecraft stuff.
Yes, which will be coming at a later date. Well, she'll be in a Minecraft at a later date.
Yes, she's also going to be joining this call later on.
Oh, we get a special guest, but it's not Rick Guerrero?
It's not, and so that's why Malachi got to that's why Malachi got to introduce himself. I'm having trouble with words.
Joseph, you sound like me.
You guys have more right to be tired than I do, so why don't you guys talk about why you have more right to be tired than I do?
I know the answer to that question.
We were at RTX.
We were guardians at RTX.
That
we
too.
At RTX.
We were guardians, and we worked our butts off, but it was amazing and well worth it, as always.
Worked my butt off more.
No, you didn't. You had to sit in a chair and record shit.
I just like to say it because it bothers you so much.
Fight.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I sat in a chair and I hit record and stopped recording, but that's just from Friday on.
Yes, Wednesday and Thursday, you guys, the tech team does do a lot of stuff. I will admit that.
Did you get to move the camera? It's a lot of arm strength to swivel those things.
It's not a lot of
that's the joke, dumbass.
I can't move it.
Jeez, it's so heavy.
Was that your inhaler?
Yeah, that was great. Because you're turning it.
So, Tristan, if you couldn't move the camera around, would you be banished to Lions team?
You are about that.
Yeah, I'm a bit salty.
Honestly, no, they didn't want me moving the camera around. My team would always yell at me for moving the camera around, and then the stream would be like, yay, the camera's moving and actually tracking things, and then the argument would fall off. It was one of those things where it's like, look, I know you guys keep saying don't move the camera, but the stream is better because I do. Like, especially when the stunt team came in, the RVB Ruby stunt guys came and did a panel. I had to follow them all over the place because they were doing, like, fighting moves and stuff. And I'm really glad I did.
Interestingly enough, that they moved the camera for our stream, and the only thing to really show was they're at a table, they're showing a video, they're at a table, they're showing a video, and now everyone's clapping. So it seems fitting that you would also move the camera when people are actually getting up from the table.
Well, I think they moved the camera, like, that was something I started last year, where kind of the presentations and showing the presentation, streaming was still kind of new last year, and so I was like, we can show the presentations on the stream, if we just point the camera at them. And even back then, people were like, no, we shouldn't move the camera, just keep it pointed at the... Just keep pointing at the table. I was like, I'm going to point it at the screen. And I'm sure other people had done it too, but I would point it at the screen to show what was up there. And so, that sort of just caught on, and now everybody points it at the screen at least. I was a little surprised on our panel when they started showing the audience, but, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just sad we didn't have more people in the audience for them to show.
Yeah.
It actually looked like less people in the video than there actually were, because there were some people that you couldn't see because they were, like, below the camera angle. It looked like we had 5 people when we really had closer to 20 to 30. I personally was happy with that being our first crowd.
But what I noticed is that, so I was getting notifications constantly from RTX Line's Twitter, but I don't think I ever saw one saying about the Player 4 podcast panel.
Oh.
What would it have said?
Well, you know how, like, all of the RTX lines would basically tweet out whether something was full, whether something was close to being full and filling, or if there was space available still for a panel, and when they started. When they started filling. So none of those happened.
None of them mentioned ours, like, play P4 his space and it's a nice podcast.
Yeah, like, there's plenty of seats available at the Player 4 podcast. That's what I figured would have done, because I saw that on plenty of other panels that weren't being filled, but didn't see ours.
That's unfortunate. I mean, we were way back in the back. We had trouble getting people in the first place, also competing with Ruby. You'd think that sending out a tweet for any panel that's not Ruby at the same time as Ruby would help out those panels, get people that didn't get into Ruby. Just a thought.
I mean, we didn't have tweets like that going out from my team. The tech team thread was always, all right, I'm starting the feed in here. I'm going from feed to loop. It was mostly just for letting people know, make sure that you check this and that it's running right.
The RTX Line's Twitter was a, like, official Twitter from RTX. It's not like my Lines team was tweeting out. I'm saying that, like, you could have gone to @RTX Lines and followed them, and they would have told you what was happening with each line, each panel.
Well, we could get perspective from someone that attended, because Bree is ready to join the call.
They got Bree in here. Then I have a question for Alex about that, because I didn't subscribe to the RTX Lines Twitter because I wasn't really going to panels or anything. I was working too much to really worry about that.
The only reason why I followed it myself was because of work, like being able to answer questions about supposed lines if it ended up something getting capped.
It sounds like following it was a very good idea.
So yeah, in your case, it wouldn't be a good idea because you just get notifications that you really would have anything to do with.
Yeah, exactly.
So, speaking of nothing related to that, hello, Bree.
Hi, what are you guys complaining about?
Hi, Bree.
We weren't complaining about anything. I was saying, well, I guess we were kind of complaining about something, and the fact that, I don't know, you probably didn't follow RTX Lines on Twitter, did you, Bree?
Definitely complaining about RTX Lines not talking about us more.
Okay, so I did not follow it on Twitter, but my husband and, Matt, his friend, and Caleb, the other guy we were rooming with, they did all that stuff. And so they were telling me about the lines.
Okay, because I was just saying that I was getting notifications, because I followed it, about like every other line, it seemed like. But when the Player 4 podcast panel came up, I never saw anything about them saying, like, oh, there's plenty of space at the Player 4 podcast panel.
Oh, so you're saying that they just didn't seem to promote or give any indication besides their main panels?
No, I did see, like, another community-based panel was the Late Night Lemonade, which had the same time, I think, as us, but on Friday. I did see them get tweeted out saying that they had space.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. That was my question. I was going to ask if they got tweeted about.
And that's why I figured when I saw theirs, I was like, okay, so that's probably what's going to happen to us. But I never saw anything for us, though.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I was thinking that since it was during Ruby panel, the second Ruby panel, that would have been a good idea to promote all the other panels. Did you get in? No? Well, here's, 2 to 3 other panels you could go to. But I was also saying that I was pretty happy with the turnout we had, considering it was our first panel. We had a lot of people we knew, which was great, and also people we didn't know that hopefully we didn't turn away, because it looked like they had fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So Malachi watched the stream. Bree, you were there. We were all there. So Malachi, what was your perspective of the panel from watching the stream?
It was. I enjoyed what I did get to see. I missed part of it because I got my time mixed up and was like, "Oh no, I need to get on now." And I did get to watch all of the table read and just a few bits here and there. One thing I talked to Tristan about, I only got left side volume. So
yes, I saw that in the chat the chat archive, and I actually fixed that in the audio for the edited video. I actually isolated what was in the right speaker. It was interesting. It was like a mixture of soft static and sibilance of what we were saying, and I couldn't understand why. But if I deleted the right track, then the left track would stay in the left instead of go to mono. So I just made the whole thing mono. So yeah, it was interesting.
But
I've run across situations like that too, and I don't do a lot of recording, but when I have in the past, I messed up to the point where it was so bad that it was echoing when the other person on Skype spoke. So after that, I was just like, screw it. I'm just doing everything mono. It's going to not sound as good, but it's not going to sound as horrible as echo.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually interesting whenever I do multi-track, sometimes just to save room, I make everything mono. Because I like to use the panning tool so that it looks like, Tristan's on the left, I'm sitting in the front next to Alex, and then maybe Malachi's off to the right. And it makes everything a little bit cleaner just to make everything mono track because it takes up so much room on the screen. So, Malachi, that was your perspective, and since you missed some of it, be sure and go check out the upload because I enhanced the audio, enhanced the video. I put some of the chat flashback in there, the chat archive. Didn't get all of the archive for some reason, but some of it's there and it's interesting. Bree, tell us about what it was like to be in the audience.
For Player 4?
Yeah.
So I thought that I kind of actually thought the same thing you guys did, that the turnout was fairly good for, I don't want to make this sound less important, but what's admittedly a not very well known, entity as of yet. Especially because unfortunately we're lined up with the second Ruby panel. So all that considered, I thought the turnout was really good. And I was also very interested in how many people were actually wanting to take part in your guys' games and stuff. And everyone really did enjoy themselves.
We were pleasantly surprised by the voice acting talent.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say that's what I was really surprised by. I'm not very good at voices. I can't do voices of any character or any other person, so I didn't volunteer. But I was like, oh, gosh, I hope other people volunteer, because otherwise this is going to suck. But people volunteered, and it worked out really well.
I think what was most gratifying to me was that there were people in the audience that we didn't know. I'm sure, any given person in the audience, somebody knew them, but not all of us. So it was pretty cool that there was a diversity there, and also getting to see, Bree, Andres, Shoban, Matthew, Rick, all the regulars of our podcast.
I'm just happy that people knew the answers to the Twitter games when you guys were complaining about them when I showed them to you originally.
I still maintain that one of my complaints was about Greece, and it was still a problem.
Greece was the only trouble they had.
I want to bring up the fact that not one person knew every answer. So you were asking for the opinion of 2 people, and we were asking questions at the panel of 20 to 30 people. So of course somebody was going to get it. I was especially impressed with Matthew getting 4 dudes toasting a marshmallow. That was pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing that Alex had one that was pretty challenging that they stumbled on.
I mean, they kind of stumbled on The Shining, too. I had to give them a little thing of that hint of, here's Johnny.
Yeah, and Kristen got so excited. She was like, I know the answer, and she didn't raise her hand.
See, my problem with what was the one you guys were talking about? The girl acts like she can get the guy kind of a thing.
Oh, that's the Grease one.
That was the Grease one. I was honestly confused by that too, because unfortunately it could kind of be skewed to apply to a bunch of different movies in a sense. Now, Grease makes the most sense as the answer, but as soon as you said that, I was automatically thinking of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. But then I was like, wait a minute, no, she doesn't change herself. Not really, in the end. She just acts like someone else. And then this, and then I kept thinking of all these other movies, Pretty Woman kind of a thing, and I was like, that doesn't work either. So it could have, in a sense, applied to a few different titles.
In hindsight, I think if John Travolta's name was used at all, then that would have made it still challenging, but enough, not so challenging that no one would get it. Like, a girl learns that she can date John Travolta if...
I think that, or using the word retro, because that was set in the 50s. Mm-hmm. That I think would have been a little bit more of a key.
Or maybe because he has a nice car. Tell me, does he have a car?
I did give those hints in the end.
Yes. We're just talking about 2020 hindsight. Of course, we're not ragging on you. You did a great job with the segment overall. I think it was really fun. So, Tristan and Alex, what was it like being panelists?
That was definitely a new kind of experience.
Yeah, it was interesting being on the other side of the panel and actually having to talk to an audience.
It was interesting because you could look right in front of you, look, it's only maybe 24 people, plus whoever's watching the stream, which is probably hi mom, and that's it. It actually ended up being, I think, around 2 to 5 people around there. What is that like for you guys, being in front of a crowd? Sitting at a table trying to be entertaining for an hour?
I mean, there was a little stress to it, but I found it a lot of fun just because it was like a podcast, but we could immediately hear laughter to our jokes.
Yeah, I would say it did also help that most of the people were people that I knew, friends already that I've talked to in the past, that I'm fine, I'm comfortable with talking to, and being my goofy self. I don't know how it would be if, say, we ended up getting more people and ended up having a bigger panel. We'll see if that ever happens. But
yeah, possibly the format would have to be adapted, of course. This was very targeted towards who we pretty much knew were going to be there. But I agree with what Tristan said. Basically, to some extent, we were just recording a podcast with live feedback, but also it was sort of a live interactive show at some points. That's our talk about the panel. I wanted to know from you three what your RTX weekend was like, what the best moments were, for each of you. And then Malachi was going to share what he did this weekend as well.
Well, why don't we bring up Bree's article that she wrote for Forbes?
I guess we could start with that, because we were going to talk about your Forbes article, Bree. I guess we didn't tell you that,
Sure.
But we were.
Sure.
RTX 2016, the good, the bad, and everything interesting in between.
Yes, we all three read it.
Yes.
And
And I think we all came to a unanimous decision that it was a article that really spoke the truth about, once again, what was good, what was bad, everything in the middle, what needs to be worked on, so forth, and so much so forth.
I was just sort of expecting Bree would be like, well, here's the article, here's what I said, but then she was like, well, what do you think about it? And I feel like a jerk now. I thought it was a great article. I wouldn't change a thing. You brought up some points that needed to be made, and you made them.
Well, and it was also, I mean, I was talking to a couple people on Skype while I was writing this, and there's a lot going on in the community and the company Rooster Teeth as a whole that's very much changing and is not changing in a way that a lot of us like or would like to see the company do. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, that's a lot of that is very much hearsay right now. There's some stuff here and there that can or cannot be proved, but it's the kind of thing that I just did not want to write about. Because honestly, a lot of it didn't relate to RTX itself this past weekend. But some of it played into that, and I think part of that, I had to be slightly careful about what I wanted to, how I wrote, like the bad portion specifically. But on the flip side of that, the good side is, I don't know if this is just the strength still of the community itself, but the good side was still pretty much like all community-based stuff. Like it's still, if you know this community and you know you've been in it for a while, it's still very much like one of the best parts about the whole, you know, experience.
I like being part of this community and generally.
Well, I would say for those of us who have been to more than one RTX, the community's the reason we keep showing up.
Yeah.
It's the chance to see your best friends once a year, which for me was an hour, and that was it. But it's the reason that you keep coming back. You show up the first time, you're like, I'm going to be best friends with Bernie and stuff like that. If you know, you're a little bit younger, you're a little bit naive, or if you're a little bit older, it's like, I want to get autographs, I want to go to these panels, and after a while, the reason you're coming back is all these friends that you've made, either on the site, on social media, or at RTX, or a combination of that. For example, Bree, you and I were quick friends when I made my new account, and then Alex and I were friends as well, and I wanted to meet up with Alex and we never could, and then Bree, you and I hung out, and I gave you Lunchables every day. And
that was awesome.
And then the next year, I was wanting to meet up with Tristan and finally meet Alex, and then we roomed, you and I and Alex, along with another group, and then we met up with Tristan, we hung out with him, and then the year after that, we had a group of people all hanging out in the condo, and then this year you had that same sort of thing. So there's people that you know really well that you make it a point to see every year, and then there's people that you sort of know, but you make a friendship with during the course of an RTX, so that the next year you spend even more time together, so it's a chance to really get to know your friends and make better friends.
I just want to say that I am still going to be best friends with Bernie.
Well, he is the voice actor for Church.
I know, I'm caboose.
Let me tell you, from 4 years of press experience, interviewing him pretty much every year, it is not getting any easier.
Does he remember your name? Does he recognize you?
Yeah, but
okay.
He no longer does the whole thing where he's like, hey, how's it going? How's life? Blah, blah, blah. He's literally just like, hey, good to see you. And that's that. And then he has to go talk to someone else.
He's a busy man.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and I get that. But that's one of those things that just, you know, kind of hits you in the heart. You're like, dang, things are changing, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's a busy man along with the rest of Rooster Teeth, it seems.
Yep.
That was an interesting part of your article, was the fact that there's so many celebrities at RTX that you are more likely to see a non-Rooster Teeth celebrity, except I guess Funhouse, than you are to see one of the members of Achievement Hunter Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
But also the idea that the panels are starting to shift away from the community itself and more towards bringing in celebrities, sort of becoming like Comic-Con, which, you know, good for them that they can do that. And then I'm not bitter at all about being put in a back room because I got a panel. I'm happy about that, but it was a little bit odd to be in the back room because it, for one reason, was really hard to find. So it makes me think that maybe people wanting to see it also had trouble finding it.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it was quite a walk to get to your guys' panel, which I think probably was not a good thing about it. So maybe next year you can, you know, argue for a closer one. But regardless, I actually, as much as I love some of the Rooster Teeth stuff, it's still mostly for me about the community. And I kind of started falling away from Rooster Teeth Productions. And actually, this last year, I've become a big Funhouse fan. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the fact that I'm older and their topics and audience skews older. And I actually interviewed them and we talked about this. They said they make content that can be consumed in smaller chunks. So like during an adult person's lunch break, 15, 20 minutes, like that's what they make. And I actually really appreciate that. Because with some of the other Rooster Teeth stuff, like the Minecraft Let's Plays, like I'll still watch those, but I don't have time for those anymore until the weekend. So for me, I very much enjoyed seeing Funhouse there this year and getting to interview them and meet them and just seeing them have such a big presence, like literally within the community and on the expo hall floor. That was awesome. And I really hope, fingers crossed that they can keep doing that regardless of what Rooster Teeth itself does as an entity.
That may be a strength for them because they're not part of the OG Rooster Teeth.
Right.
That some people know who they are and some people don't, and so they can go around and actually talk to the people who are actually their fans instead of being swarmed by, Rooster Teeth, Red vs. Blue, and Ruby, and Achievement Hunter fans. They're a little bit lesser known, perhaps, by the Rooster Teeth fans as opposed to those who knew them before they were part of Rooster Teeth. So they get a little bit more time with their fans, which is probably a lot more rewarding.
Well, when they do go over to the Funhouse Lounge, it is a madhouse.
It is.
Would you say it's a fun madhouse?
Yeah, it's a fun madhouse. But I think that's because a lot of people know, like a lot of their fans, their diehard fans know that, okay, this is the Funhouse Lounge. They're probably going to be here if they ever do any signings on the expo floor, so I'm going to wait around here. So then they can go around to the rest of the expo hall floor and won't be necessarily swarmed the whole time because their fans know that they're going to be at the lounge at some point.
That almost sounds bad. Like, I'm just going to sit here in the Funhouse Lounge. They're going to come around here eventually.
There's people who do that.
It almost makes it sound like they were stalked, but when you take it out of the context of the fact that it's called the Funhouse Lounge, it's got their name in it. It's like, they're going to come by this restaurant eventually. I just have to wait. I started to sound like Batman.
Don't make it that creepy.
Yeah. Stay tuned next week for the conclusion to our Post-RTX show where we continue to chat with Bree Brouwer about what was exciting about RTX weekend in Austin, Texas. Until next time, this has been Player 4 Podcast.